Exposed. Millionaire's heartwarming escape from scandal leads to unexpected love with small-town waitress. Jack Harrison's life had unraveled in front of the world. Once the celebrated CEO of a tech empire, he now found himself the subject of scandalous headlines. From Manhattan skyscrapers to a quaint town called Maplewood, population 2,500, Jack sought anonymity and maybe a little redemption. He traded his tailored suits for worn jeans and lost himself among the flickering porch lights and friendly waves of townsfolk who didn't know him from Adam. But entering this new world wasn't as easy as slipping on those jeans. In the local diner, he met Emily Carter. A single mother, waitress, and the heart of her community, Emily was known for her charity work and fierce loyalty. Jack felt a strange pull toward her that day, but their first encounter was steeped in misunderstanding, sparking an awkward confrontation. "You don't belong here," she spat, frustration brimming as she wiped down the counter. Jack's chest tightened. Her words cut deeper than any headline ever could. Over time, the tension soared between them, a mix of disdain and curiosity. At the annual Maplewood Festival, Jack committed to making a positive mark on the town, working side by side with Emily to set up tables and serve pies. Can he really handle a day of hard work? The whispers echoed around him, eyes narrowing. Yet Jack was unfazed. He smiled at the challenge, letting the warmth of community wash over him. With every shared joke and slight touch, the ice between him and Emily began to melt, the tentative chemistry sparking to life amidst laughter and pies. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Just as Jack began to feel he could belong in this close-knit town, disaster struck. A news clip revealed his identity, dragging him back into the rancor he'd fled. Furious eyes turned toward him, questions filled the air, and chaos ignited. Jack's heart sank. Emily stood with her arms crossed, loyalty battling betrayal. "How could you?" she whispered, and the warmth drained from their newfound connection. In that moment, Maplewood's sense of community shone brightly, the people rallying around Emily, shielding her from the storm. Jack felt the weight of their glares but realized he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for something bigger. Suddenly, it became clear. Could he forsake the past, embracing the love that had blossomed so unexpectedly? As uncertainty loomed, Jack stilled himself, standing at the crossroads of wealth and belonging, heart racing at what the future held. What would he choose? Escape or acceptance? Would the love he discovered amidst homemade pies withstand the storm of his scandalous past? The answer hung in the air, heavy with promise and dread, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Jack stood frozen, the world buzzing furiously around him. The townsfolk murmured, casting anxious glances. He could sense the disbelief as Emily's eyes, once warm and curious, turned cold and shadowed. An invisible barrier separated them now, thick with betrayal and confusion. As she turned away from him, Jack realized that this wasn't just about the scandal. It was about the trust that had started to build, slowly, over shared laughs and stolen glances. The diner, vibrant with the scent of coffee and freshly baked pies, felt suffocating now. He wanted to scream, to explain, but the words were tangled in his throat. "Emily, wait," he finally said, and he took a step toward her. But she flinched, as if his mere presence was a reminder of an ugly truth. "I didn't choose this. I came here to escape, to find a life away from everything that happened." Her expression hardened. He could see the conflict within her, the flicker of doubt battling the memories of joy they shared. "You think it's that easy? You think you can just walk back into our lives with your fancy past and expect us to forgive you?" Her voice wavered, betraying the hurt lingering beneath her anger. Every word felt like a dagger. Jack's heart ached at the thought of losing not just Emily, but the connection he'd built with the whole town. The friendly faces that had once greeted him now turned to stone, each gaze deepening his isolation. "I'm not that person anymore," he pleaded. "I just want a chance to prove it." But the crowd had already begun to disperse, leaving a tension thick enough to suffocate. Jack chased after Emily, who was already taking her little boy, Robbie, by the hand, ready to flee. "Please, just let me talk to you," he insisted, desperation spilling into his voice. "I care about you. I thought you cared about me, too." She halted suddenly, and he could see her resolve fading slightly. "You don't understand. It's not just about you. You've put us all at risk. People trusted me to keep my son safe, to bring him up in a good community." Tears formed in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I can make it right. I just need a chance to show you. Show everyone." Jack stepped closer, his hands outstretched, imploring her to see the truth within him. But she shook her head, a silent dismissal. Robbie tugged at her hand, sensing the unspoken tension. "Mommy, can we go eat ice cream?" His innocent voice cut through the heaviness, reminding Jack of what was at stake. Emily knelt to meet her son's gaze, brushing a thumb across his cheek, but not before casting one last look back at Jack. In that fleeting moment, he saw the flicker of hope battling against despair, a longing for connection that had blossomed against the odds. But it was buried under layers of unspoken fears. As she walked away, Jack felt a surge of panic. He had to fight for this love, had to convince her his heart was in the right place. The festival had been just the beginning. He couldn't give up now because that would mean abandoning everything they'd built. The next few days felt like an endless loop of quiet anguish. Jack couldn't hide in his past anymore. He needed to confront his new reality. He began to immerse himself in the town, volunteering at the community center, repairing park benches, serving food at the shelter. Every effort was a plea to the townsfolk, an attempt to reclaim their trust. But as each passing day drew him deeper into Maplewood, he wondered if it would ever be enough to win Emily back. Just when he thought he'd cracked the code of this town, a familiar face reemerged, bringing with it another whirlwind of emotions. "Why are you here?" she asked, her fierce determination rekindling the warmth he had missed so dearly. Jack's heart raced as he prepared to answer a confession that could change everything. Hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Would this moment lead him closer to Emily, or plunge him deeper into despair? As he opened his mouth to respond, one thought echoed relentlessly in his mind. Could he bear to lose her again? Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all the unspoken words pulling at him. The sunlight pouring through the nearby window illuminated the worry lines etched on his forehead. He couldn't look away from her fierce gaze, the determination shining bright like a beacon that both soothed and terrified him. "Because I want to change," he finally said, each word carefully considered. "I want to be someone different, someone good enough for you, for Robbie, for this town." There was a soft rustle of disbelief from the few townsfolk lingering in earshot. "Good enough?" she echoed, her eyes narrowing. "You think it's that simple? You can't just flip a switch and erase what you've done?" The words sliced deeper than he expected. Anger and shame swirled in his chest, but he pressed on. "No, I can't. I know it won't be easy. But I need you to understand that I didn't come here to bring chaos to your life. I came here to build something real." For an instant, uncertainty flickered across her face. He could almost touch at a possibility just beyond reach. "Jack, I want to believe you, but how do I know you won't just disappear when things get tough? That old life of yours, there's a darkness there I can't ignore. I won't run again. I promise," he said, his voice steady but vulnerable. "I'm standing right here, facing this head on. I've worked hard to be part of this community. I couldn't care less about the wealth I left behind. I thought coming here would be about finding a new purpose, but now it's about you." Emily's breath hitched, and for a moment, he thought she might relent, let go of the anger just long enough to see him as he was now. But the protective instinct of a mother tightened her resolve. "You don't understand what you're asking of me." Robbie, unaware of the storm swirling around him, stood quietly, his small hand clutching Emily's. "Mommy, can we go to the park?" he chimed, breaking the tension like a warm sun on a frosty morning. Jack couldn't help but smile at the boy's innocence. It reminded him of the good that still existed amidst chaos. "Not right now, sweetheart," Emily said softly, but there was a subtle crack in her voice. She was torn, and Jack could see it as clearly as day. "Maybe later." Jack took a step closer to them, heart racing. "Can I come with you? To the park, I mean. I could help Robbie on the swings, or we could grab ice cream afterwards." Emily's look was skeptical, her protective walls rising again. You think that's the answer? Just showing up and pretending things are fine? No, I'm not pretending. I'm trying to be part of this, he pleaded. Give me a chance to show you that I can be here for both of you. I want to create good memories, too. Jack caught a flash of something in Emily's eyes, a mix of doubt, desire, and fear. She was grappling with the pieces of her heart, carefully weighing the risk of letting him in. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, a familiar voice cut through the air. Emily, there you are? It was Sam, a local businessman with a friendly face, but eyes like storm clouds. We need to talk about the festival's preparations. Emily's gaze flicked to Sam, and Jack felt icy fingers of jealousy curl around his heart. Sure, I'll be right there, she replied, and Jack's stomach dropped. He was losing her again, but he wasn't about to back down. Emily, he called, desperation clawing at him. Please, let me show you who I've become. Just give me a day, and I swear I'll prove it. A moment of silence hung in the air. Emily hesitated, her brow furrowing deeply. Jack could see thoughts whirling behind her eyes, doubt warring with something deeper, something that might just be a flicker of hope. As she turned to answer him, the moment was interrupted by a sudden burst of laughter from Robbie, who had just spotted a squirrel darting across the pavement. The distraction pulled her attention away from Jack, and in that split second, he felt the chance slip away. A profound ache settled in his chest. Could he really win her trust back? With Sam looming like a shadow over the moment, everything felt uncertain, but he wasn't done fighting yet. Jack clenched his fists, resolve hardening. You're worth the risk, he finally said, voicing a promise not just to her, but to himself too. I won't give up. As Emily walked away with Sam, Jack stayed rooted to the spot, heart pounding. He had done everything he could, but would his resolve be enough? The shadow of doubt lingered, and as the whirlwind of voices faded behind him, only one question remained. How far was he willing to go to rewrite his story? The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow across the town square as Jack stood alone, the sounds of laughter and chatter fading into the background. He felt like a ghost, wandering through a life that once belonged to him but now seemed so distant, like a thought half remembered. His mind raced with what he might say, how he could mend what was broken. He couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away. He needed to keep moving, find a way to change her mind, her heart. Hey, Jack, came a cheerful voice, dragging him from his thoughts. It was Lucy, the town's energetic librarian, her excitement infectious. You coming to the festival planning meeting? We could really use your ideas. Jack forced a smile, hoping it masked the turmoil inside him. Yeah, I'll be there. He could feel her eyes scrutinizing him, sensing the weight of his silence, but not pushing. Great. We'll need all hands on deck. Sam is really taking charge this year, she added, her enthusiasm undeterred by the undertones of his mood. As she bounced off to chat with another group, Jack's resolve shifted. Maybe he could use the festival to show Emily that he wanted to be part of this community, that he didn't just want a second chance, he needed it. He decided to walk around the square, allowing the chatter of the townsfolk to wash over him. He spotted Robbie playing with a cluster of kids by the fountain, his laughter ringing like a melody against the backdrop of the drumming heart of the town. A flicker of hope ignited inside Jack. As he approached, he couldn't help but marvel at how much joy the little boy emanated. Maybe if he got involved with Robbie, Emily would see the man he was becoming. He knelt beside the children, feeling the warmth of their joy envelop him. Hey, Robbie, you want to race? The boy's eyes lit up, his small hand tugging on Jack's shirt as he nodded eagerly, unaware of the emotional battle taking place in his mother's heart. They sprinted to the old oak tree, laughter trailing behind them. It was pure, uncomplicated joy, something Jack had missed so desperately in his former life. As they collapsed in a heap under the tree, breathless and giggling, Jack looked around. The laughter of children was a soft balm, washing over him like sunlight breaking through a dark storm. But then, his gaze landed on Emily standing a few paces away, arms crossed tightly, watching them. The look on her face twisted his insides. It was a mix of worry and fierce protectiveness, which tugged at the desire in his heart. Jack, she called, her voice edged with frustration. This isn't a game. Maybe it should be, he replied, a hint of challenge in his tone. Life is too short to stay locked away in the shadows of the past, Emily. The intensity of that moment hung like thick fog, while Robbie darted back and forth, oblivious to the tension. He looked to his mother with wide eyes. "Can we all play together, Mommy?" Her breath caught, and for a moment, the layers of hurt and hesitation slid away, revealing the woman Jack remembered, hopeful but guarded. "I don't know, Robbie," she stammered, glancing at Jack. But he saw a flicker in her gaze, a thread of possibility weaving its way through her resolve. "It might not be a good idea, you're right. It's not just a game," Jack interjected softly, stepping closer as the weight of his words settled. "It's about us finding a way to be whatever this is." Emily looked into his eyes, searching for truth, but the doubt still lingered like an uninvited guest. Would she allow herself to feel this rush of emotions, or would she build the walls back up? With the sun setting and shadows stretching long, the moment held them all suspended in uncertainty. Jack knew the stakes now. He had to tread carefully. As Emily searched his face, he silently made a promise, one that fed the flickering flame of hope in his heart. He had fought for every part of his new life. Could he fight for her, too? And just when he thought he might reach her, a distant sound broke the moment, a siren, sharp and cutting through the air. They all turned in unison, the weight of reality crashing back in. What trouble loomed just beyond their fragile cocoon of safety? Jack felt the world shift again, the stakes rising higher than before. Could he protect what he started to build, or was it too late? Moment of silence stretched, filled with the distant wail of the siren. Jack felt a tightening in his chest, a familiar gnawing fear creeping back in. He glanced at Emily, who now wore a mask of concern. The chaos returned, crashing into their fragile moment like an uninvited storm. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Robbie's innocent question cut through the tension, and Emily knelt down, brushing her hand through his hair, trying to soothe her son. The clamor of the square faded, and all Jack could hear was the pounding of his own heart, punctuating the stillness. Emily looked back at Jack, uncertainty flickering in her eyes like the last light of day. "I don't know, Robbie. Just wait here for a minute, okay?" Her tone was gentle, but it held an edge of urgency. Jack knew the town well enough to sense what was looming. Trouble always has a way of making itself known in mundanity. "Why don't you take Robbie back home? I can check things out," Jack suggested, trying to sound calm despite the anxious energy buzzing around them. "No," Emily snapped, her voice sharper than he expected. The intensity of her gaze held him in place, as if she was afraid of the answers they both might confront. "You shouldn't go alone. What if it's something serious?" "I can handle it," Jack insisted, stepping closer, feeling the pull of their old connection. The shared memories flared bright against the dimming light. "I need you safe, Em." "We both do." Robbie shifted between them, sensing the rising tension. "Can we just go home?" "I don't like sirens," he murmured, voice small. Jack crouched down again, meeting the boy's anxious gaze. "Hey, buddy, I promise everything will be okay. Just like when we raced, right? You'll see." He offered a smile, tender and reassuring, but inside, his heart raced at the prospect of uncertainty. Emily's expression softened, listening to the gentle pulse of her son's fear. "Okay, maybe we should stick together," she conceded, and Jack could see the policy of protection rise as she took Robbie's little hand in hers. As they walked forward, each step was a collective leap into discomfort, and the unfamiliar. Jack felt the magnetic pull of hope and dread intermingle like they always had. They made their way toward the edges of the square where people were gathering. Conversations ebbed and flowed, scattered anxieties buzzing in the air. "What do you think is happening?" Jack asked, keeping his voice low, but the wild beating in his chest reminded him how fragile everything felt just then. "I don't know," she whispered back, her eyes scanning the crowd filled with concerned faces. "Whatever it is, it seems serious." Jack's stomach twisted. The siren was louder now. He felt a connection with Emily, like the tenuous thread of a shared fate binding them together once more. But the worry etched on her face made him wonder, what if this incident drove them further apart instead? Amidst the rising confusion, Emily caught his eye, and for a fleeting second, there were echoes of everything they'd hidden from each other: regrets, fears, and a flicker of longing that dared to surface. Then a voice burst through the commotion, thick with panic. "Someone's in trouble by the old mill. We need help." The statement hung heavily in the air, and Jack felt his heart race. "Stay close," he urged, thoughts racing ahead of what they might face. The shared uncertainty sparked an age-old instinct in him. He knew he had to protect what mattered most. As they moved closer toward the gathering crowd, Jack felt the weight of Emily's gaze again, a mixture of fear, courage, and an underlying connection that begged to be acknowledged, even amid chaos. Once that door creaked open, could it really bridge them back to where they needed to be? The air crackled as they approached the unknown, and amidst the worry, a flicker of determination ignited in Jack. He turned to Emily, ready to ask her something he hoped would cement their resolve. But the ground shifted beneath them as the realization crashed in. Was the danger merely external, or was it tied to the walls they had both built? In that moment, the bridge to tomorrow was still shrouded in fog. What awaited them at the old mill? Would it draw them closer or tear them apart forever? Jack pushed through the throng of townsfolk, his heart pounding with every footfall. The gathering crowd parted slightly, revealing a few anxious faces that sparkled with fear and uncertainty. They were all asking the same question, voicing the same concern. What had happened near the old mill? The bright sunlight overhead turned red as the sirens pierced the air, making it all feel surreal, as if someone had pressed pause on reality. Emily kept her grip on Robbie's hand tight, her knuckles pale against the boy's small fingers. Jack stole a glance at her, trying to gauge her feelings through the layers of worry. Trust washed over him, mingled with determination. They had to stick together through this. What if it's really bad? Robbie's voice trembled, small in the chaos. What if someone gets hurt? Jack crouched down once more, meeting the boy's eyes. We're going to see what's going on, he assured. And if there's trouble, we'll help. Right, Em? He turned to Emily, offering a solution that hung in the air between them. She nodded cautiously, her brow creased. We can't just stand here, she said, voice low but resolute. Let us see if we can help. Together, they pressed on, pushing toward the heart of the crowd gathering near the mill. The fabric of Jack's resolve wrapped around his family, tightening as they neared the thrumming epicenter of fear. Whispers circulated. I heard someone fell. They say there was an explosion. Have you called for the ambulance? The collective uncertainty felt heavy, like an invisible weight resting on Jack's shoulders. Turning back to Emily, he saw the worry etched across her face again. This wasn't about him. It was about them. It was about keeping her and Robbie safe, even if it meant he had to face whatever waited ahead alone. When they finally reached the clearing by the mill, the sight that greeted them stopped Jack cold. A group of firefighters were emerging from the building, their uniforms bright against the splintered wood and broken beams, brief silhouettes against the setting sun. Dust filled the air, mingling with the acrid smell of smoke. Jack's chest tightened. Is everyone all right? Emily called out, the urge to help compelling her forward. The firefighter nodded, though his face held a grave expression that sent a shiver down Jack's spine. We're okay, but there's someone still inside. Jack felt the ground shift beneath him. That simple statement echoed louder than any siren. Anxiety shot through him. The urgency clawed deeper. Is there anything we can do? Emily's fingers tightened around Robbie's hand, but her eyes searched Jack's, wordlessly asking him to keep them safe. He took a deep breath. Let me go in. I can help, no? Emily interrupted, the panic rising in her voice. It's too dangerous. Before he could respond, there was a distant shout. Help! I'm trapped. It came from within the smoldering structure. Jack's gut twisted. The cries were tinged with desperation, a stark reminder that time was running out. The crowd began to murmur, reports of someone trapped escalating. Jack's heart thudded louder as adrenaline replaced fear. He had to act. I have to go in, he said firmly, turning back to Emily. You can't. Her voice trembled, both in worry for him and for the life still inside. What if something happens? I can't just stand here. Jack's heart raced. If I don't try, who will? The moment stretched, seconds felt like hours. Jack looked deep into Emily's eyes, willing her to understand his need to act, to protect. The tension was palpable, a battle of love versus fear in her gaze. Just stay with Robbie, he said, half pleading, half resolute. He took a final look at them, the weight of the world pressing down, then turned his focus back to the burning mill. He could feel Emily's grip on Robbie loosen slightly, hesitation bubbling beneath the surface, but he had made his choice. He bolted towards the structure, ignoring the shouts behind him. the danger that loomed over them like a shadow. As he reached the entrance, a gust of heat roared out at him, making him stumble. The cries for help echoed in his mind, pulling him inside against every instinct that screamed to turn around. What awaited him inside was uncertain, but one thing was clear. He had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back now. At that moment, Jack wasn't just racing against time. He was racing against the past, the history he had with Emily, the fears they faced together, and the fragility of their hopes for tomorrow. What would it take to bring them back together again when everything they faced started to unravel? The world around Jack transformed into a boiling cacophony the instant he stepped inside the mill. The air was thick with smoke, stinging his eyes and seeping into his lungs, making each breath a challenge. He blinked hard, forcing himself to focus through the haze, ears tuned to that haunting voice, pleading for help. Help! I can't breathe. The fear-born desperation resonated against the wooden beams, pulling him deeper. Jack took another step, moving cautiously, conscious of the unstable ground beneath his feet. Each anguished cry ignited an urgency within him that drowned out the sound of his own heartbeat, echoing incessantly in his ears. Suddenly, a beam creaked ominously overhead, and he instinctively ducked, bracing himself against the wall. He hesitated, wrestling with the instinct to retreat. But the cries persisted, echoing his own resolve. Someone was counting on him. "Stay with me. I'm coming," he shouted, forcing his voice to bounce off the walls, praying it would reach the trapped soul. His instincts kicked in as he moved further in, stumbling over debris. The beams of fleeting sunlight filtering through the cracks in the mill lit a small path forward, creating surreal shadows that danced like ghosts in the thickness of the smoke. He squinted, straining to make out anything, a figure, movement, anything that might signify hope. "Where are you?" he called again, straining his voice through the clouded air. "I'm here. Please, I can't hold on much longer." The voice was closer now. Jack's heart raced as he surged forward, adrenaline coursing through him like wildfire. He reached a doorway that opened into a smaller room cluttered with fallen materials. His hands trembled as he worked to clear a path, each movement feeling more frantic than the last. "Just a little longer," he shouted, as splinters dug into his palms, grounding him in the moment, reminding him why he was there. Outside, he could hear the muffled sounds of the crowd growing restless, murmuring about the unfolding rescue, but all he could focus on was the voice. Every moment felt fraught with danger and purpose. Finally, he broke through the last of the rubble to see a woman, her face dirty and streaked with fear, illuminated in the dim light. Relief surged through him, but it was quickly overshadowed by horror as he noticed a heavy beam pinning her leg to the ground. "Hang on, I'm here," Jack gasped, kneeling beside her. "We're going to get you out of here." "But it's too heavy," she whimpered, tears mingling with the soot on her cheeks, her voice wavering. "I can't, trust me," Jack said, his own fear mixing with urgency. He gripped the edge of the beam and pulled, muscles straining, willing it to move. With a groan, the beam shifted slightly. Encouraged, he forced it again, and the woman cried out, not from pain, but from a flicker of hope that ignited in her eyes. "Just a little more, you've got to help me." She nodded fiercely, pushing against the ground with her remaining leg, her strength bolstered by the sound of Jack's determination. Together, they worked, fighting through the exhaustion and smoke as the beam fell away. He took a breath of disbelief mixed with joy. "You did it," he exclaimed, but their victory was short-lived. The mill groaned ominously, as if the very structure resented this act of defiance against its peril. "Run," Jack shouted, grabbing her arm. "We have to get out." They burst through the doorway just as another piece of the mill collapsed behind them, sending dust billowing into the air. Jack managed to pull her into the open space, feeling the recent threat spill behind them like a dark shadow chasing them into the light. The cheers of the crowd erupted around them, but Jack could hardly hear them over the sound of his own breath. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern etched on his face as he looked at her. She nodded slowly, relief washing over her features, but in the distance, he noticed Emily, her expression a storm of worry and confusion that deepened every moment he remained outside. "Jack!" she cried, rushing to them, panic lacing her voice. As she neared, Jack felt an unsettling shift inside, a nagging pull of the past. Would she understand the choice he made to save this life? Would she see the connection he forged in that moment of fear and courage? Are you okay? Emily asked, her eyes darting between Jack and the woman, unsure of what she should feel. Suddenly, Jack found himself tethered between two lives, two paths. In that heartbeat, while the crowd cheered around them, he realized that the walls of the mill weren't the only things at risk of collapsing. How could he bridge the gap between the thrill of survival and the weight of his growing relationship with Emily? The silence that followed felt deafening. Behind him, the mill smoldered, and he knew that outside this moment of crisis, everything else was about to change. What awaited him as he turned back to Emily? Words caught in his throat. Jack opened his mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. His pulse thundered in his ears, mirroring the roar of cheers washing over them. Emily's gaze pierced through him, her brow furrowed in a mix of gratitude and something darker worry? Jealousy? He wasn't sure. I saved her, he stammered, the admission sounding feeble even to his own ears. She was trapped. Yeah, I saw, Emily replied, her voice quiet but firm. You did something incredible. But there was a weight behind her words, an unshakable tension threading between them. The woman stood up on shaky legs, her gratitude palpable. Thank you so much. She grabbed Jack's hand, clutching it tightly. You saved my life. He glanced back at her, then to Emily. The moment felt suspended in time, the cheers from the crowd fading into a distant hum. Jack had done something good, something noble, but it felt like he was teetering on the edge of an emotional precipice. Emily stepped closer, her voice low as she asked, Do you feel okay? The sincerity behind her question hit him like a punch. I'm fine, just caught up in everything. He didn't want to bring up the fear that had nearly overwhelmed him inside the mill, the almost frantic sense of purpose that surged through him when he heard her cries. Every moment spent in that mill replayed in his mind, every heartbeat, every struggle against hopelessness. You don't know what it was like, he said, voice almost breaking. I thought I was going to lose her. I understand what you did, Emily whispered, her eyes glistening with unspoken feelings. But what about us? A wave of frustration washed over him. This isn't about us, Em. No, it's not, she replied, a tremor in her voice. But it should be. We can't ignore how everything changed in there. You went into that mill risking your life. I had to. Jack clenched his fists, needing to assert something amidst the chaos of his feelings. I couldn't just stand by. The woman, still catching her breath, glanced between them, sensing the undercurrents. I didn't mean to interrupt, but Jack, you really are a hero. Her voice was almost soothing, a reminder of why he had acted so bravely. Jack felt the heat of embarrassment rising in his cheeks. I just did what anyone would have done. Not anyone, Emily murmured. Not everyone makes that choice. A part of him wanted to reject that notion. Was he really any different? But deep down, he felt something shift within him as he glanced at the crowd, their faces full of admiration, respect. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. There's so much. Jack started, looking for words that wouldn't do justice to the confusion swirling in his heart. I don't know how to navigate this feeling. I don't either, Emily said softly, but if we don't talk about it, we're just going to drift further apart. We made it through today, Em. Maybe things will settle down. But as he looked past her at the structure behind them, smoke still curling into the sky like a damaged memory, he realized this moment wasn't going to settle. The impact of saving someone carried weight, ripples that would reach far beyond this day. Do we even want to settle? Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but the question cracked open something raw in him that a fresh wave of people surged past them, cheers echoing back towards the mill as reinforcements arrived to clear the debris. The reality around them began to shift again, but for Jack, everything stood still. Before he could respond, the woman, still lingering, interrupted with a new urgency. Jack, wait. You can't just leave me now. He straightened, unsure of her meaning. Was she referring to the rescue? Or was something else demanding his attention? Something about her words pulled at him, revealing yet another layer of complexity in this moment. He could feel the ties of responsibility and emotional currents spiraling like the very smoke that had filled his lungs minutes ago. Can you stay here for a minute? Jack asked, looking back at Emily. There's something I need to figure out. He watched as the hope flickered in Emily's eyes, as she took a step back, allowing him the space. But that flicker was tenuous, a small flame threatened by the winds of uncertainty. Jack turned back to the woman, determination building inside him. What do you need? But deep down, he braced himself for revelations he wasn't sure he was ready to face. The crowd danced around them, oblivious, while Jack stood on the brink of discovery, worry and anticipation churning within him. Would he uncover the truth about himself and what this moment meant, or would he lose his chance? Jack watched the woman's eyes spark with desperation, her grip on his hand tightening. You need to understand. I saw something in there. Something that matters. And I don't know if I can explain it all right now, but you need to hear it. He felt a knot forming in his stomach. The crowd's euphoric cheers became a cacophony in his ears, drowning out everything else, as if they were standing at the eye of a storm. What do you mean? He asked, confusion mixing with unease. The woman glanced towards the crowd as if measuring the safety of their conversation before leaning in closer. When I was trapped, I could hardly breathe. I thought it was over for me. But before I panicked, I saw her voice trembled slightly, threatening to break. There was someone else in the mill. Not just me. And they looked like you. Jack's heart raced. What do you mean? What did they look like? I don't know, but it's important. Her brows furrowed more deeply, and for a moment, Jack saw the fear reflected in her gaze. It looked like you were connected to something. A beam, a light, maybe even a memory? I'm not sure if it was real or a trick of my mind, but when I heard your voice, I felt hope. It was like you were a lifeline. A rush of emotions flowed through him, were his fears manifesting through someone else's experience? You think I'm connected to whatever happened in there? Yes, she exclaimed. And if you don't embrace that connection, Jack, it might slip away. I felt something when you rescued me, something bigger than just survival. You made me feel alive. Those words hit Jack like a wave, forcing him to reassess all that had just unfolded that day. Risk, sacrifice, and now this strange link circulating through the air around them. But how could any of this matter in light of everything else? He turned back toward Emily, whose face was now clouded with something resembling heartbreak. Jack, what is going on? She asked softly, concern slicing through the crowded noise. The urgency in the woman's eyes and the swirling chaos of the moment made his heart pound harder. I don't know yet, Emily. I just know. Emily interrupted, her voice rising slightly. You can't dismiss this. Can't you see that while you were busy saving others, the real emergency might be right here? With us? The weight of her words pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe. Jack turned back to the woman, his thoughts tangling. Are you saying there's a deeper reason for this connection? For you coming to me? She nodded, her eyes full of sincerity. You were meant to find me, Jack. Your instincts were right. Your courage it led you to me, but there's more to discover. Jack's mind spun. He had wanted to believe he was no different. But now everything was shifting beneath his feet. What do you mean by meant to find you? Every action has a reason, Jack. With Emily still watching, hesitant, Jack felt that space between them grow. His heart was in a vice, emotions crashing through him, fear, hope, longing. Would he dare to follow this twist of fate or back away into familiarity? As the shouts of the crowd ebbed and flowed, he whispered, what if the truth turns our lives upside down? His question hung in the air, filled with the possibility of change, uncertainty, and something he wasn't ready to name just yet. It felt like time had bent, waiting for an answer that would set his course for good or ill. Suddenly, the woman leaned closer, her voice firm. You won't know until you decide to listen. Jack's breath hitched. This could be the moment everything changed, one way or another. What are you willing to risk for the truth? She asked, locking eyes with him, her gaze fierce and unwavering. He opened his mouth, ready to answer not only for himself, but for Emily too. But before he could speak, a loud crash echoed from the mill, followed by a collective gasp from the crowd. Every head snapped toward the source, leaving Jack feeling suspended in a moment of clarity and chaos. What awaited him when he turned back? Jack, Emily's voice quivered with urgency. What do we do? In that moment, he faced a choice that could change everything. Who would he save next? What would he uncover behind the veil of smoke and turmoil waiting just ahead? The chaos around them was almost unbearable. Sirens blared in the distance while the stench of smoke filled the air, a grim reminder of the danger that still loomed. Jack felt his heart racing, a battle of emotions swirling within him as he stood at the crossroads of life and love. Turning back to Emily, he saw the worry etched across her brow, her fingers tightening around Robbie's hand. Her protective instincts were evident, but there was something more, a deep-rooted fear that clawed at the edges of her heart. He had fought against his past, faced the flames of the mill, and now he needed to fight for them, for what they could be together. "Emily," he started, the words tumbling out, "I need you to trust me. I need you to believe that I'm not that man anymore." She stepped closer, her eyes flashing with both anger and confusion. "And how can you expect me to do that, Jack? After everything? You rushed in there, and I was terrified I'd lose you, or worse, that you'd just disappear when the flames settled." "No." He reached for her hand, desperately searching her eyes for something, anything that would bridge the gap between them. "I can't just give up on us. I chose to save that woman because it reminded me of what it means to really live, to connect with something beyond ourselves. And I want that with you, Em." Emily's breath caught, her defenses wavering as the weight of their shared experience hung between them. He glanced at Robbie, whose small fingers still clutched his mother's, the innocent boy unaware of the tumultuous emotions swirling just beneath the surface. "I want to create good memories too, not just for you, but for him." The flicker of resolve sparked in Emily's gaze. "It's not that easy, Jack," she murmured, her voice softer now. "I keep waiting for you to disappear again. But what you did today showed me something. Maybe you really want to fight for us." The tension in the air shifted, settling into something lighter. Jack took a step closer, his voice urgent and full of hope. "Let us not let this moment slip away. We cannot ignore what happened. We made choices that led us here. If we take another step toward each other, we can reshape everything together. I'm ready to fight for you. Are you ready to fight for us?" Emily held his gaze, uncertainty dancing in her eyes, but Jack could see it, a crack in her armor, a willingness to see beyond the fear. Robbie smiled up at them, completely unaware of the depths of the conversation unfolding. The sweet innocence buoyed their spirits, reminding Jack of all the reasons worth fighting for. "Mommy, can we have ice cream now?" Robbie chirped, his voice bright against the lingering shadows. Laughter rippled through the crowd nearby, as if the sun itself was gracing them with warmth. In that moment, Jack felt clarity wash over him. "You know what? Yes, let us go get ice cream." He reached for Emily's hand, intertwining their fingers, a powerful promise echoing in the gesture. "Together, we face everything together." A gentle smile broke through Emily's initial hesitation, and he could see a glimpse of the Emily he had come to admire, the fierce, loyal woman who devoted herself to those she loved. "Okay," she agreed. "Let us start anew, one step at a time." As they began to walk hand in hand, a sense of ease enveloped them, weaving through the tumult of recent events. The cheers of the townsfolk faded into the background, replaced by laughter and joy, like a soundtrack to their new beginning. Jack turned to Robbie, kneeling down to his level. "Ice cream it is. What flavor are you thinking?" "Chocolate chip cookie dough." Robbie beamed with excitement, and Jack felt his heart swell with affection, a stark contrast to the unease just moments ago. They made their way toward the ice cream stand, the vibrant colors reflecting the hope budding anew between them. Jack glanced sideways at Emily. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of worry and warmth, and he couldn't help but feel grateful. They were in this together, facing uncertainty side by side, determined to forge a life filled with laughter and love. They approached the stand. Jack paused, turning to Emily again. "I promise, I will do everything in my power to build your trust back. I'll show you how serious I am." Her gaze softened, the storm clouds of confusion dissipating. "Let us take it one day at a time, then." "That sounds fair." Together, they shared a moment, hands still intertwined, hearts beating in sync as Robbie's laughter rang out like music. It was a choice to embrace the beauty of their journey ahead. The past may have been fraught with struggle, but the road ahead shimmered with possibility. With every scoop of ice cream and every shared laugh, they were writing a new story, one filled with hope, love, and the unyielding belief in the power of resilience. They celebrated their small victory at the ice cream stand. Jack knew one thing for certain. They were not just fleeing the shadows anymore. They were stepping into the light, together. The future lay in front of them, a blank canvas waiting for brush strokes of love and determination. It was time for them to be the artists of their own story. Now, it's your turn to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support and be part of our family. Don't wait not even one more second to share.